You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 83. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how to stop over drinking in 90 days without missing out on life. If you're not an alcoholic, but fed up with saying yes to a drink when you mean to say no, you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking about waste and how to redefine it. Now, this is one of my favourite topics to talk about when it comes to alcohol. And yes, I realise I have a lot of favourite topics, but this one really is a humdinger. If you're stuck with your drinking, you might find that this is lurking beneath the scenes. And this topic, actually, this idea of and concept of waste comes up again and again and again. And I'm talking with people, dozens of people every day about alcohol use. And this is probably one of the top 10 that comes up. It typically shows up in a way that we either don't question, right? We don't question the concept of waste and not wanting to waste the alcohol. Or on the rare occasions when we are willing to question ourselves and do we want to waste this or not, it kind of develops into a fight against ourselves, which is quite intriguing. So that's what we're talking about today. I want to start with a little bit of background. Now, I was brought up to finish the food on my plate. Whether I felt like it or not, it was just the way it was in our house. Right? We finished what was on our plates. Now, I'm very grateful to my parents for this. It means that I am not a fussy eater. And this is a huge bonus, right? In social situations. I don't have to worry what anyone's going to serve up for me. I will eat it. It's what I was taught how to do. But at some point along the way, I also graduated to what I call the empty glass club, right? To drink the wine that's in the glass in front of me, even if I hadn't asked for it. Even if I didn't really want it, or even if I had poured it for myself by mistake. Why? Why was I doing this? Well, because it's wasteful and because it's rude to not drink up, right? I don't want to be rude and considered rude and wasteful by people around me. So that's what I want to talk about today. First, I want to talk about kind of the belief, I think, that we have beneath the scenes that waste is bad. And when I ask people why they drank the drink they didn't want, they will inevitably say something like, well, I don't like to waste things, right? It's just not who I am. Now, it might be because you were brought up as I was, and perhaps you find that this applies across all of your life. And actually, I recognize it is a hardwired belief. I see this in many people. I certainly see it to myself. I see that it anchors so many parts of my life, right? I can just look at different elements of how I live. Right? I love shopping for clothes on flea markets. I just do, right? And I was just in Gran Canaria and I bought 3 pairs of trousers for the princely sum of €2.50. You can't even buy a cup of coffee for that. I've got 3 pairs of trousers. Nice bright ones as well. And for me, it's not about the money. It's not about saving the money, but a sign that I'm not in throwaway fashion, right? I just don't go in for that cheap and cheerful stuff and buy new the whole time and then throw it away after 2 wears. I like to see things used. I don't buy new cars, right? I have 3 children, and when they were growing up, I had an industrial strength hand-me-down system for clothes, shoes, ski boots, coats, all of it. I had this whole system, shelf system, and this Excel sheet behind the scenes rather. I tend not to throw away leftover food, right? Let's say there's a little bit of mashed potato. I prefer to keep it and then use my imagination as to how can I integrate that and incorporate that in the dinner for tomorrow. Then take a step back and you can see this happening at the society level, right? There's a big push for conservation, for waste management, for reuse and recycling. That's all gaining momentum. And then add into that, there's the cost of living these days with inflation, pushing prices up. And we don't want to waste stuff, right? It's just a waste of money. We don't have that money to waste. So when it comes to wine and alcohol and the idea of wasting it, I can see why that is horrendous for many people, right? And I was there. I get it. But I'm not there anymore. And you don't need to be either. So let's dig in. First, let's look at all the use cases, all the scenarios, and how this happens. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list. It's just a sample, some of the things I see frequently. And now, as I read these statements out, I want you to gauge how you would feel if I were to tell you that in each case, each of these cases, the answer is you have to throw the drink away, right? You just got to waste the drink. You've got to throw the drink away. All right, so here's the first scenario. You pour yourself a glass of wine and there's a little bit left in the bottle. It's not enough for another glass. You've probably had enough, but you really need the space in the fridge. All right, you need to throw the drink away. How do you react to that? Scenario 2, your friend accidentally on purpose buys you a drink when you said no. Throw the drink away or not drink it, right? Just sit there and not drink the drink. That's the answer there. How do you feel when I say that's what you need to do? Another scenario, you say no to a drink and your friend or family member blatantly ignore you and buy you one and they put it in front of you. Right? They've spent money on you. I want you to either throw it away or not drink it. Just leave it there, not pick it up. How do you feel about that? Or perhaps there's a little variation on that theme. You say no to a drink and then you're told by the other person, don't be so silly. It's too early to stop. You're ruining my fun. Come on, the night is young. And then they go ahead and buy you one. And what I want you to do is to either throw it away or just sit there and kind of let it go to waste. There's another few scenarios. You go to a corporate event and you get offered a tray of red or white wine that you just take on automatic reflex. And then you realize you don't want it. And you're standing there with all these people. Maybe they're your customers, maybe your boss, and you've got this glass in your hands. You actually don't want. Everyone's there and you can't escape. Right? I want you to not drink it or to throw it, put it back on the tray somewhere. Can you do that? You go to a wedding and someone hands you a glass of champagne for the toast, right? And I want you to not drink it. That champagne's going to go warm in your hand. How do you feel about that? Let's say you have a drink and you take a sip and then you realize, oh my goodness, I don't like the taste. What do? I want you to just not finish the drink. Let's say it cost you, £12. I don't know what that is in dollars. Let's say it's $15. What do? I want you to be able to just not drink it. Or you buy yourself a drink and then you realize you're actually too tired. You realize this was a mistake. But you're there surrounded by people and they're kind of looking at you. It's getting to be the end of the evening. They're waiting for you to drink up and go home. I want you to not drink it. How does that feel to just leave that drink there? And here's one for the white wine drinkers. I was so familiar with this. You're out for the evening and there's a small amount of wine left in your glass that's now warmed up to such a degree. It's not that nice. It's not going to be that nice. So you throw a couple of ice cubes in it to make it more palatable. But I want you to not drink it. I want you to just leave it there as wasted wine. And on it goes, right? So we have the scenario and there's how we feel about it. And the common thread, I bet, or that I commonly see in each of these circumstances is that you don't want the wine, you don't want the alcohol, but you drink it anyway, right? Because it would be a waste not to. But that, my friend, is often, or usually I should say, not the whole story. Because people then go on often to tell me it was actually saying that it was wasteful in that moment was a useful excuse. It was useful for me to say to people I didn't want to waste the wine. It was useful for me to say to myself, look, you don't want to waste the wine, because secretly a piece of me really wanted to drink it too. If that resonates with you, if that's you, I want you to see that you are actually calling yourself out on your story about not wanting to waste the wine. Now, it's possible you don't want to waste the wine. That's true, but that is often not the full story. You are instead drinking not because you don't like waste or because it's rude or it's bad to do that. You're drinking because you want to. And you're able to dress that desire up behind not wanting to waste the wine, right? Because not liking waste sounds and feels a lot more noble than, well, I just really want it. So start by being honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what is the thought behind this? Am I really saying I don't want to waste it? Or am I actually more concerned with the fact that I actually do want it? It's an opportunity I don't want to pass up. Right? But that just feels too grabby. That feels too graspy. That feels too much like the old me that I don't want to identify with. So instead I can kind of shift into this, well, it's bad to waste. I can hang my hat on that one. That'll do. And instead of going to using waste as the excuse, and let's say you recognize, actually, I do want it. I mean, I really actually do want it. Be okay with that. Don't judge yourself for it. It does not mean, by the way, the fact that you want it does not mean you have to drink it. Because now, you've got another excuse, another reason. What it means is you can accept the fact that you want it in that moment and you can be okay with that. It's okay. I want it. Of course I want it. I've been doing this behavior for many years now. This is my default response. Doesn't mean it's because I want it that I have to have it. And it doesn't mean I have to hide behind this waste thing, right? But let's say you say to me, no, Anna, right, maybe I do want it, but actually genuinely I don't want to waste it either. I mean, I really, really don't like waste as a concept. And besides which, I can't afford to waste the money. If someone's bought me the wine or I bought myself the wine, I just can't afford to waste it. Here's what I want you to consider. I hope you're sitting down for this. So we'll twiddle your brain a little bit. I want you to consider that if pouring wine down the sink is a waste of wine, then pouring wine down your throat that you don't want is a waste of your self-respect. Because you are wasting your own agency when you actually do things you don't want to do. Right? There's waste either way. So ask yourself this. Is it more wasteful to throw away alcohol that you don't want, or more wasteful of your self-esteem to drink something just because it's there? Is it more wasteful to drink the glass of wine because it costs £11 or $15 or whatever? Or is it more wasteful to the future you, the person you are becoming? Because by taking the action of drinking, especially when you don't really want to do it, even if you secretly do, but you wouldn't choose to do it, by doing that, you're actually choosing to keep yourself in the desire-reward loop and making it harder to change your habit of drinking. What would you rather waste? The wine or your self-respect? The beer or the progress you've made in just being able to sit with urges? The champagne or the pride that you feel in yourself when you stick to your drink plans? So when you're next in this situation, not really wanting the drink, but feeling kind of sort of obliged to drink up to avoid waste, I want you to remember that every sip is a decision. Because you can always change your mind. That is open to you. What do you want to decide for yourself? And here's the thing. We change our minds all the time about lots of things, and about expensive things, about embarrassing things, right? We're going to, out in a restaurant, we're going to eat a pudding. We order the dessert or the cheese, and then we find we only have room for one mouthful. We don't sit there and say, right, it's going to be a waste. I've got to eat all of this. Invariably, we don't. Perhaps you buy tickets for a concert, and then you feel too ill to go. You aren't going to drag yourself off your sick bed feeling like death warmed up just because you bought the tickets. Maybe you prepay a hotel room or a holiday that isn't covered by insurance, and then you find you can't go on the trip because something more important has come up, right? Now, we may not like making the decision to waste the pudding or the cheese, the concert tickets or the hotel room, but what we don't do is we don't dress it up as making this something bad about us because we're being wasteful. We are typically pretty phlegmatic in my experience. Oh, well, we might say, I knew I was taking a risk when I booked that trip. Some you win, some you don't. So you really can change your mind about alcohol in the moment. You really can. You can always pause, right? Sometimes we're just going through the motions and then we're suddenly like, oh my goodness, we're not supposed to be doing this. I realize I'm only doing this. I'm following through because I don't want to waste it. I'm having those thoughts. That happens, but you can pause. And guess what? You can pour the wine back into the bottle. You can pour it down the sink. You can interrupt that. If you feel really bad because someone's bought something for you, you can pay your friend back the £11 or the $15 if you feel like you've wasted her money. You can do this even if you had said no and they bought the drink against your wishes. You have all these options. That's my point. So much choice available to you. You have the option to quote unquote waste the drink. And whether you do or not will depend entirely on your thoughts about this. And if you are still, after all of this, still tussling with this, I have 2 final thoughts to offer. First, it's unlikely the glass will be wasted. I mean, think about it. Most people tell me, yeah, I actually know if I hadn't have drunk it, then someone else would have. It actually really wouldn't have gone to waste. Maybe even the person who bought it for you, knowing that you didn't want it. Maybe it was an excuse for them to get their hands on another glass. You don't know, right? So it's unlikely to go to waste. And if you're at home, here's another option. You can use the alcohol in cooking tomorrow. I do that all the time, right? Just put a piece of cling film over the glass and cook with it tomorrow. I add all sorts of alcohol to sauces and all the rest of it to give them depth and pungence, and it's nice. Now, if your brain has gone to, that means there'll be a glass of wine available to me, and that's going to bring up all other thoughts about temptation through it being available. That's a topic for another day. But I will just say it's only a temptation if you decide to have thoughts about it in that way. That's pretty much all I have for you this week, other than to say, if you're struggling with your alcohol consumption, and I know how lonely that feels, and you've decided you want to change your drinking, but you just don't know how, or everything has tried has not worked, I can help. I don't care how old you are, how many times you tried, anything else. I can help you. I will help you create freedom for yourself around alcohol, whatever that means for you. Whether that means you just drink at the weekends, just have one occasionally, or perhaps you give up entirely. Depends what you want. Go ahead and book a call with me to chat about your situation. I do this one-on-one. It is geared around you and your life. So go to 90dayslater.co and click on the book a call button at the top there. That's the first thing I wanted to say. And then the second thing is this Thursday, 6th of July, on my Facebook page, 90 Days Later with Anna Charles, I will be going live on the wonderful topic of 3 ways to handle social drinking pressure. I'm going to be doing this every Thursday. I'm going to be going live every Thursday. So this is my first one, 3 ways to handle social drinking pressure on the 90 Days Later page with Anna Charles. And if you are live, if you turn up, I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the topic. I will stay online for as long as there are questions, open questions. But of course, it is also recorded, so you can go to it anytime. And I hope to see you there. And otherwise, I will see you at the podcast next week. Bye. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. And we do it in 90 days. The effect is permanent. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.